What if I told you that God operates by an abundance law so powerful, it guarantees unlimited prosperity for believers, but religious leaders deliberately hide this truth to maintain institutional control and financial dependence? For centuries, churches have preached scarcity, struggle, and sacrifice, while the Bible reveals divine abundance principles that create automatic wealth for those who understand them. Napoleon Hill studied 500 millionaires and discovered they unconsciously followed the exact same abundance laws that God embedded in creation itself, laws that work regardless of religious belief but multiply exponentially when combined with biblical faith. The shocking truth is that poverty violates God's abundance law while prosperity aligns with divine design. Yet religious institutions teach the opposite to keep believers financially limited and spiritually confused. Churches suppress abundance, teaching because wealthy believers don't need institutional support, guidance, or control. They become independent thinkers who recognize religious manipulation. Today I'm exposing God's abundance law that guarantees unlimited provision, while revealing why religious leaders fear this knowledge more than any other biblical truth. If religious teachings about money have kept you struggling while others prosper, comment abundance law and share your biggest frustration with church financial doctrine. Genesis 1:11-12 establishes God's abundance law from creation's beginning. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. Notice that God didn't create just enough plants for survival, but programmed automatic multiplication through seeds that produce exponentially more than they consume. Every apple contains dozens of seeds that can produce thousands of apples, demonstrating divine abundance, thinking built into creation's foundation. Napoleon Hill found that successful people think abundantly rather than scarcely, always seeking multiplication opportunities rather than just meeting basic needs. The phrase "according to their various kinds" shows that abundance operates through diversity and specialization, not limitation and competition. Religious leaders avoid teaching this because it reveals that scarcity thinking opposes God's design, while abundance thinking aligns with divine principles. When you understand that multiplication is creation's default setting rather than exceptional blessing, you begin thinking like God thinks and attracting the unlimited provision He programmed into existence. What talent or resource do you possess that could multiply like seeds if you planted it properly? Comment your multiplication opportunity below. Deuteronomy 8:7-9 describes God's abundance law in action. "For the Lord, your God, is bringing you into a good land, a land with brooks, streams, and deep springs gushing forth, a land where bread will not be scarce, and you will lack nothing." The Hebrew word "lo chaser" means you will not lack anything needed for complete fulfillment and prosperity. God promises abundance in every category: water sources, multiple types for different needs, agricultural productivity, bread not scarce, and mineral wealth, iron and copper. This isn't survival provision, but comprehensive abundance that exceeds all requirements. Napoleon Hill documented that successful people expect and plan for abundance rather than just adequacy, exactly what this passage teaches. The word "good" land indicates that God's abundance law operates through favorable conditions and environments rather than struggle and hardship. Churches suppress this because it contradicts their scarcity theology while proving that God's default intention is comprehensive prosperity rather than limited provision. When you align your expectations with God's abundance law, you position yourself to receive the unlimited provision He designed for His people. What area of your life are you settling for just enough instead of believing for God's abundant provision? Share where you need to raise your expectations. 2 Corinthians 9:8 reveals the mechanics of God's abundance law. "And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work." The Greek word perissuein means to overflow or to have more than enough, while pantote means at all times without exception. Paul describes automatic abundance that operates continuously rather than occasionally through divine ability rather than human effort. The progression is, abundant blessing leads to having all you need, which enables abundant good works, creating cycles of increasing prosperity and impact. Napoleon Hill found that sustainable wealth requires this same cycle. Receive abundantly. Meet all needs. Invest in value creation. Receive even more abundantly. Churches avoid teaching this cycle because it creates financial independence that threatens institutional control. The phrase "God is able" indicates that abundance limitation comes from human thinking rather than divine capacity. When you align with God's abundance law, you access unlimited supply that exceeds your needs while enabling greater service to others. How could having more than enough money enable you to do more good works and serve others better? Comment your abundance vision for greater impact. Ephesians 3:20 contains the ultimate abundance promise. Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. The phrase immeasurably more translates hyper ek perisou, meaning superabundantly beyond measure, prosperity that exceeds imagination and calculation. This isn't limited provision, but unlimited abundance that surpasses human comprehension, while according to His power that is at work within us, indicates that abundance flows through believers rather than to them. God's abundance law operates through divine power working within surrendered people rather than external circumstances or human effort. Napoleon Hill discovered that the wealthiest people tapped into power beyond themselves through what he called infinite intelligence. Exactly what Paul describes. Churches suppress this because it bypasses their institutional gatekeeping while empowering believers to access divine resources directly. The phrase, "all we ask or imagine," means your current financial dreams are too small compared to what God's abundance law can provide. When you understand abundance as divine power working through you rather than blessing coming to you, you become a channel for unlimited prosperity. What financial breakthrough would you consider immeasurably more than you currently dare to ask or imagine? Share your biggest abundance dream below. Luke 6:38 describes God's abundance law in action. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. This isn't charity teaching, but abundance physics, the universal law that giving activates, receiving in proportional multiplication. The phrase "pressed down, shaken together, and running over" describes maximum volume measurement, meaning returns exceed original gifts when abundance law operates correctly. Napoleon Hill found that successful people understood giving as investment that activates universal laws of increase rather than loss that depletes resources. The key phrase, "with the measure you use," indicates that your giving attitude and methodology determine the quantity and quality of return multiplication. Churches teach this as religious obligation while missing its abundance activation mechanism because they want one-way giving to institutions rather than believers understanding how strategic giving creates personal prosperity. When you give with abundance consciousness rather than scarcity fear, you activate God's multiplication law that guarantees exponential returns. What could you give right now with complete confidence that it would return to you multiplied? Comment your abundance investment below. Malachi 3:10 reveals God's confidence in abundance law. "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." This is the only verse where God invites testing His promise, showing supreme confidence in abundance law operation. The Hebrew barakah means blessing that includes material abundance beyond capacity to contain, while floodgates of heaven suggests overwhelming breakthrough that exceeds human ability to receive. God challenges people to test abundance law because He knows it works with mathematical precision when properly applied. Napoleon Hill found that successful people tested universal laws through systematic application rather than hoping they might work occasionally. Churches avoid teaching this test because they fear believers discovering that abundance law works independently of institutional involvement. When you understand that God's abundance law operates through universal principles rather than religious performance, you can test and prove its reliability through systematic application. What would you consider evidence that God's abundance floodgates have opened in your financial life? Share your abundance measurement below. Philippians 4:19 guarantees God's abundance law operation, and my God will meet all your needs according to his glorious riches in Christ Jesus. The Greek plerou means to fill completely, while glorious riches refers to unlimited heavenly resources available for earthly provision. Paul promises comprehensive supply from infinite source, rather than limited provision from finite resources. This verse operates on abundance law principle that divine supply exceeds human need, because God's resources are unlimited rather than restricted. Napoleon Hill discovered that successful people developed consciousness of unlimited supply rather than limited resources, exactly what this promise establishes. The phrase "all your needs" includes everything required for fulfilling divine purpose, which often requires substantial resources for maximum impact. Churches minimize this promise to spiritual needs while avoiding material applications because abundant believers don't depend on institutional provision. When you claim this promise with understanding of God's abundance law, you access unlimited supply for comprehensive provision that exceeds natural limitations. What need in your life seems too big for normal provision, but perfect for God's unlimited resources? Comment your supernatural supply request below. John 10:10 summarizes God's abundance law. I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. The Greek perisou zoe means life overflowing beyond measure, including material abundance that enables complete fulfillment and maximum impact. Jesus contrasts his abundant life with the thief who comes only to steal and kill and destroy, indicating that scarcity, struggle, and lack oppose divine intention, while abundance aligns with God's purpose. This abundance includes financial prosperity, because money enables greater life expression and service opportunities than poverty allows. Napoleon Hill found that truly successful people understood wealth as tool for abundant living rather than goal for selfish accumulation. Churches avoid teaching abundant life as including material prosperity because they prefer dependent believers who need institutional support rather than independent believers who can provide generous support. The word abundantly appears in present tense, meaning abundance is current availability rather than future reward for religious performance. When you receive Jesus' abundant life, you access God's abundance law that transforms every area of existence, including finances. How? Would abundant life change your daily experience if money was never a limiting factor? Comment your abundant life vision below. God's abundance law operates through 7 principles that religious leaders deliberately hide. Creation, multiplication, Genesis 1:11-12, comprehensive provision, Deuteronomy 8:7-9, overflow blessing, 2 Corinthians 9-8, immeasurable abundance, Ephesians 3:20, giving activation, Luke 6:38, testable guarantee, Malachi 3:10, unlimited supply, Philippians 4:19, and abundant life access, John 10:10. These aren't occasional miracles, but systematic laws that operate with mathematical precision when properly understood and applied. Napoleon Hill found that the wealthiest people unconsciously followed these same principles through natural observation, while believers can access them intentionally through biblical revelation. Churches suppress abundance law teaching because wealthy believers become independent leaders rather than dependent followers who need institutional control and support. You now understand that poverty violates God's design, while prosperity fulfills divine intention when aligned with kingdom purposes. The only question is whether you'll apply abundance law with the same systematic consistency as successful people throughout history. Remember, God's abundance law guarantees unlimited provision for those who understand and apply its principles correctly. If you're ready to activate God's abundance law systematically in your financial life, comment abundance activated below, and I'll send you the complete implementation guide for applying all 7 principles daily to create supernatural prosperity breakthrough.